so we could have a full month where one of us would be there with her. And needless to say, it was an amazing privilege to be in Latvia, you know, her homeland, her heartland. And it's such a beautiful country. We have another Latvian person here, and it's just a beautiful country. And it's the culture and the food and the art and the land, and then that mixed with the incredible trauma that has happened in the country and people's resilience is just like everywhere. And particularly so, one, being in Latvia, which is such an incredible country with such a powerful history, but then to be with Agate, you know, meeting people, and we were there to help support the launching of this book in Latvia. And in particularly relevant to this event, I got to be there the week that was really the launch of the book, which included 3 openings that were like standing room only, every one of them. And in that week, she did 18 interviews. Oh my God. So, I mean, unbelievable how, you know, just each one she stepped up. And I have some notes, so I'm just going to quick glance at them, because I think the thing that was most moving for me is just over and over and over again, I saw the impact of Agate as a person and Agate's writing on people living in Latvia. And it's just like each person, you know, would come up and just, you know, old, young, all ages, writers, intellectuals, and they would just be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So the admiration that people had, and just like each person, there'd be this long line of people wanting her to sign the book. And, you know, each person just coming with their story and wanting to connect with her, and just how kind you were to every person. You know, I got to have the job of saying, okay, next. It's like moving people forward, but it's just to witness that. And I'll tell one quick story, then I'm stopping. I think my time's probably up. But a good example is a young woman, and forgive me if you're going to tell this the woman who ended up being the person that translated the book into Latvian. And unbeknown to me, we both had an image of her being like an older, kind of frumpy woman. You know, I don't know why, you know, made question assumptions. But then she came to the house we were staying in, and here she was, this kind of punky young woman with some purple hair and braces. And she was so excited to meet Agate, so to witness things like these two people who had such kind of an affair over this translation. I mean that in the best of terms. And seeing them meet, and this woman was obviously just madly in love with Agate, and she was shaking. And I was like, okay, she had a little cake, and she had flowers, and I'm like, she was shaking so much she could hardly even hold them. And just seeing them together and talking, and the many things later, because I don't know Latvian, that Agate told me about their conversation. And so I just want to say that, you know, I love you, Agate, you know that, but to be there with her for the opening of this book, which is now in English here, was truly amazing.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, first, thank you all for coming, of course, but first I want to thank Donna and George for arranging, hosting, working on this event in this space. in this beautiful space that is fast becoming a literary salon. And just very much thank you for doing that. I'm just overcome by all that you did to make this possible. I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to describe the origin of this book, The Lost Midsummers. I'm going to comment a little more on the translation. I will read a little from it, not a whole lot, and describe the themes and the narrative threads that go through the whole book. And then I hope we can have some questions and comments at the end. In 2017, the American Latvian Association issued a call to all Latvians living outside of Latvia to prepare for the 100-year anniversary of Latvia getting its independence after World War I in 1918, and to think of a gift that they could give Latvia for that occasion. Hopefully a gift that would make little tiny Latvia better known in the world. Now, I happen to have a manuscript that I had been working on. It was kind of unwieldy, and as I realize now, not really finished yet. I had a manuscript called Shopping for Relatives, which talked a lot about Latvia and Latvians in exile, and I thought it might be usable as a gift if I worked on it. And I was and I decided to go with self-publishing because I was just not masochistic enough to get all of those rejections, which always made me feel like I shouldn't write another word. And it would also cost some money. And so I decided to apply to the American Latvian Cultural Fund. I wasn't very hopeful because the old conservative Latvians had really been very abusive and had really pummeled me after the publication of A Woman in Amber. But as it turns out, another generation is now in charge. And a second big reason I got the grant that covered pretty much the expenses of publishing the English version. And also, I want to recognize right now two people who were instrumental in me getting that grant, and one of them is Chris. Would you wave or stand up? And the other one is Dale. They both wrote terrific recommendations for this work to be considered seriously, and that was the other reason I got the grant, and so the physical existence of the book is really largely their doing, and also the newer generation of Latvians who are looking at things somewhat differently from the old, very embittered and politically conservative group that was in charge before. Writing Lost Midsummers really began with this phrase that kept haunting me after my first visit to Latvia in 1991, when the Soviet Union was beginning to unravel, and the statue of Lenin had been knocked down in Riga, but was being guarded by Russian soldiers in Liepaja, and so forth and so on. And I went to the first academic conference, and before going, because there were no consumer goods available in Latvia, you could not buy a cup of coffee in Riga unless it was being served in a Soviet tourist-run hotel, but nowhere else. You couldn't buy a bra or a pair of shoes for one of your relatives. Anyway, so before going, I shopped like a crazy person, and I went with 3 full suitcases of things, and all of them had to meet the prohibitions, many prohibitions and directives that the Soviet government had put out. For instance, you could only bring 2 toys. What if your relatives had 3 children, you know? No fashion magazines, because that might give women the idea that there was a different possible life. And of course, no Bibles, etc., etc. And so this whole thing, shopping for relatives, started going through my head. But when I got there, I did meet one relative, a very distant cousin, and his family, who were just wonderful. I'm really glad I connected with them. But another group of relatives were a huge, huge disappointment. And so I made up my mind to continue contact with Janis and not continue any contact with these other relatives. And it occurred to me, this too is shopping for relatives. Here I found this rich American, I was called rich many, many times. And in comparison, I really was. And I buy the people whom I want, and and I take objects and things there in exchange. So this phrase kept haunting me, and I wrote a little sketch, I wrote a little poem, and that didn't do it, and so that was really the start of the novel. The way I wrote this novel is not how you should write a novel, because I had no characters, I had no plot, I knew nothing about it. But I slowly started writing, and the characters appeared, and some with greater surprise to me than others. I did get it written. It took me a long time to do it, of course. I also, at this point, I would like to acknowledge the 3 people who are here who were in my writer's book in my writer's group as I was struggling to write this manuscript, Shopping for Relatives, and each one of them helped me a whole lot. There's Dale Kushner, wave, and there's Dwight Allen over there, and Ann Schaefer is back there. And really, they made my writing so much better. I learned so much from them in a very enjoyable way, and I got a lot of support from them to continue writing, and that what I was doing was not insignificant. Okay. Well, what is Lost Midsummers about? The subtitle says it's a novel about exile and friendship, and that's really what it is. Exile is an irreversible condition. It's best visualized perhaps by the word liminality, which is so rarely used that it's not in the Microsoft thesaurus, at least the last time I looked. But that limen in Latin is threshold, and liminality is standing on the threshold between 2 rooms, unable to fully enter either one. And I often think about this, that now we have people standing at the borders wishing to enter our country and other countries, and they're described variously as asylum seekers, victims of domestic and political violence, criminals, refugees, but nobody seems to be talking about or aware that they are also exiles, that they will carry that deep longing to return to their country, and they will have the sense of loss. They lost their homes, their friends, the landscapes that they loved, the language, and so on. So it is about the theme of exile goes through Lost Midsummers. The other way to describe the book is that the narrative thread is these two girls who meet in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1950. One of them is 14, that's Alma, and the other one is 12 years old, and that's Kaya. And they have a very complicated, difficult, and nevertheless significant friendship for all of their lives. Because as different as they are from each other, nevertheless they're tied together because they understand their past and the context in which they have lived the way that nobody else could, and because they speak the same language. These two girls are indeed very different from each other. One of them assimilates to the United States, the other one does not. One is interested in property, the other one is interested in literature, culture, and love affairs. One marries, the other one doesn't, etc., etc. And as I said, it is a difficult friendship, and the novel is about various complexities in women's friendships. I'll say just a little bit about that later. But now I will read a passage, a little bit from the very beginning of the novel. This takes place in 1941. Latvia is under Russian occupation. A few weeks later, the Germans will come, and there are various atrocities and executions and deportations. And a few weeks later, the Germans will come in and they will do their own executions and imprisonments and torture and so forth and so on. But this is before the Germans come in. It's a week before Midsummer. And this is what Velta, the mother of Alma, is torn away from when she is deported. The coldest winter in memory is past. Sweet grass and red clover flourish beneath skeletons of apple trees killed by icy winds. Hens cluck, brooks shimmer, and cows gill milk. Bringing good luck with them, storks have returned to their nests high above churches and farms. Wild strawberries ripen on the edge of woods, and beets grow plump underground. Russian conquerors swagger on cities streets of Latvia, but only the fragrance of evening-scented stock and newly mown grass wafts around country houses. Velta surveys her cool, orderly kitchen in Stabule, which is translated the flutes, the farm that her husband Valds owns. She covers sweet sour rye dough with a linen cloth, sets it to rise, and rubs glycerin and rose water into her sunburned hands. Stitching her arms high above her, she brings her palms together and places them over her heart in a position of prayer. May I always be thankful for all I have. May I be at peace. May I be free of fear, she whispers. Her body fills with gratitude for the flourishing vegetables and flowers in her weed-free garden, for wheat ripening in the fields, for her husband who will be home in a few days, and for their 5-year-old daughter Alma, asleep in the barn. May I be free of fear, she repeats, trying to rid herself of an entirely unfamiliar feeling of unease which has invaded her this evening. And the little girl has been cranky all day, and she has been sent, she's been given the treat of being able to sleep out of the house. And Velta has told her a story about porcupines brewing beer and getting ready for midsummer, and all of that is disrupted. And I will read just a paragraph of this in Latvian so you get a sense of what the language sounds like. the same first paragraph I'll read. Ir pagājusi augstākā ziema, kāda palikusi atmiņā. Zem ledaini vēja nokaltētām ābolēm kuplo klāsmaina zāle un sarkanais āboliņš. Klukst vists, mirguļo strauti un govs dod pienu. Atnestām laimi savās ligzdās augst virs baznīcām un lauku sētām ir atlidojuši stārķi. Mežmalās nogatavojās meža ogas un zem zemes briest pietas. Pa Latvijas pilsētu ielām lepni staigā krievi iebraucēji, bet lauku mājas apņem vakar smaržu, ko izgaro darba rīki un svaigi nopļautā zāle. And Mary mentioned the translator, and it was really such a great experience for me to work on the translation. This translator had spent the whole honorarium on getting her hair purple and braces. and here I had this, we both had this sense that it was going to be a kind of substantial, experienced, older women who had translated 1,000 books. It was a really big surprise. But working on the translation with her was really so wonderful. I mean, we worked really close to 2 years, a year and a half. And one of the things was that it reminded me of so many words that I had not used for maybe 60, 70 years. And I understood them, I recognized them when I saw them, but I hadn't used them, and they were not in my active vocabulary. Another pleasure that I indulged in was to cross out the unfortunate words that had crept in from Russian. And not with such pleasure, but with an attempt to educate a little bit. I also edited the words that had come in from English. Now, the United States is greatly admired in Latvia, and everybody talks about business and so forth and so on. But sometimes that becomes quite ridiculous. I'll just give one example. There are a lot of very helpful, useful Latvian words that could be used, but something is brought in from English. One example is the head of the mayor of a city. Galvaspilsēta is how you would say it in Latvian. Now is referred to as mēris, mayor, taken from English, mayor, which mēris means the plague. I was after vocabulary like this. And one of my final point about the translation is that I learned from the translator that all the language structures in my brain are still Latvian. Because she said when she translates from English, she tears a whole paragraph apart and rewrites it in Latvian. And that's the only way it is to do it. Whereas translating my book, she could go word by word by word by word. And I was just thrilled to learn this, but also I became extremely uneasy. I ran to Mary, does the English sound weird? Because it's been done with the Latvian brain, or part of a brain that's Latvian. So anyway, that much about the translation. Now, let me see what else I was going to talk about, a little bit about the rest of the content. And I don't want to give the impression that it's all totally grim and serious in this book. And it is about female friendship, and one of the complications of this friendship develops when a woman named Magda, who is Hungarian, comes to Indiana University after the Hungarian Revolution. And she is sophisticated. She has been through the revolt. She stood on, she stood on tanks and waved the Hungarian flag, and she slept with poets and freedom fighters. And she is put into a women's dorm in Indiana University where there are 100 rules and prohibitions governing virginity and womanhood. And Kaya is assigned to look after her, because Kaya is from Europe, and of course they're all alike there. And Europe is a degenerate place and sinful and so forth and so on. Anyway, she comes, and she, of course, as you might predict, has a hard time fitting in. And I think I'll just read one short passage about Magda. Let's see, should I read about taking? Okay, I will read about her going to the dentist. In spite of Magda's parents being state-supported artists in Hungary, she had not had proper dental care. Maybe she had been terrified of drills, maybe she had eaten sweets, smoked cigarettes, and ignored directions to brush, which she would do. In any case, Magda's stained and cavity-marred front teeth were her one feature that was not completely lovely. Magda whimpered that she would die because only sadists became dentists and enjoyed inflicting pain. She wanted to skip her appointment, but Kaya insisted and walked her to the office of Dr. Payne, spelled P-A-Y-N-E. One of the dentists in Bloomington who had volunteered his services for the Hungarians. Magda returned in high spirits, however, in spite of her swollen lip. And she's totally open to life and to everything that happens. I have had a big adventure, she announced. Did it hurt? Kaya asked. Yes, it did, but I don't mean that. My teeth have so many problems, but they are very fine teeth, and he will fix them very nicely. But I learned something very interesting about myself from this dentist Payne. I am the most passionate woman he has ever had. I mean, as a patient, of course. Can you imagine this guy? He explained to me how men can tell. If a woman starts to breathe fast when her mouth is packed with cotton, that is number 1 sign. Number 2, if her neck and breasts flush in her décolletage. Number 3, if she shivers and gets goose dots. When her mouth is rinsed. Just think, I have all 1, 2, 3 number signs. He showed me exactly where I am most responsive and where I can get the most pleasure. Where, how, Kaya practically shouted. First with water, then with his fingers, and then with his tongue. He kissed you? Yes, but it was more than that. He helped me to understand more about myself. He put his tongue in your mouth and you let him, Kaya screeched. She had told Magda that it was up to the girl to draw the line and to see that every couple kept 3 feet on the floor. But of course he put his fingers in. He is a dentist. Oh, Magda, Kaya let out a snort of laughter in spite of herself. She imagined a fat little dentist, drill in hand, advancing on Magda. But what had happened exactly? Were you scared, Magda? No, he's a very nice man, but very, very old. He must be 40. Maybe 50. And his wife is ancient because she has glasses and wrinkles and light hair. He has a picture of her on his desk. That's good, Kaya said. That he was married meant it would not go very far. I like him because he is so like a father or grandfather. He has a nice big stomach and his pants are down to here. Magda motioned towards her crotch. He pressed himself against me like so, and he put it in my lap, the stomach I mean, and it growled there quietly and peacefully all the time. That is typical of a very old man. Magda, you must not have anything to do with him. He is not nice, Kaya declared, thus excluding Dr. Payne from the all-purpose positive label of the 1950s. He's not nice was the word. He is dangerous and irresponsible. He tried to seduce you, and that was very wrong of him. You are a young girl without your parents, alone in a foreign country. You deserve male protection. I am worried about you, Magda. I can take care of myself, Magda said confidently. But you are very kind to worry, Kai. You are my good and dear friend. You are my only friend in this terrible place. Anyway, I did push him away when all his particles got hard. Perhaps she was translating directly from Hungarian, but Kai understood what she meant. She could not have phrased it more precisely herself. And then I'll read one more passage, and then I think I have probably done what I said I would do. Midsummer is very important in the structure of the novel, and it's also very important to Latvians because it's a far north country. The winter is long and it's very, very dark, and you can't really get through it unless you have a shot of brandy in the morning or the local magic liquor called Black Balsam that has 47 spices and herbs in it. And I once had a cold and took a shot of that on Midsummer Night's Eve, and I was so sick. And I danced all night, but I didn't die the following morning the way I thought I would. But anyway, Midsummer is very important. And Kaya asks Alma to tell her about what she remembers about Midsummer in Latvia. Alma is in the kitchen of Stubbles, that's the farm that her father owned. Velta, her mother, is bending over a white enamel tub on the kitchen floor, which she has lined with fragrant fleshly plants that grow on the edge of the pond. They are called kalmas in Latvian, and Alma does not know their name in English. She has never seen them growing in America, but that does not make them less real. The fragrance of birch branches, which Balds has cut and carried indoors, mingles with that of calms as Al's mother pours warm water from a jug. Tenderly, tenderly, she sets Alma on the smooth green leaves and brushes a strand of hair away from her eyes. Tenderly, tenderly, Velta washes Alma's face and shoulders and the rest of her body. The rising steam obscures her mother's face, and the old despair threatens Alma as she tries to catch her hand and hold on. But then she feels a gentle touch and she hears Kaya's voice. That is good, Almin, I am here. Tas ir labi, Almin, es esmu šeit. And the fragrant green mist enfolds them both.